Great to have you here with us on TRT World. Let me begin by asking you, given that the United Kingdom has experienced a staggering rise in hate crimes against the Muslim community since 2015, that's according to a Home Office report, how can the far-right figures in the country, the influencers, the far-right politicians, and most importantly, former Home Secretary Braverman, how can they justify their rhetoric without acknowledging the violence and division it has incited across the country?
Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the question. As far as the part of your question that relates to politicians is concerned, I think that's for later. I mean, we need to hold them to account for their rhetoric, but I don't think we need to do things now, right now, in the next days, that are going to create a even more polarized situation. I think what we need to do is to, and the second part of your question in terms of what to do about it, is to remember that Britain is not a polarized country. It's actually a country that has strong communities that will rise to this occasion, I'm sure, and unite. And it has a policing method which is based on community policing, and it has a government that will stand firm in the face of what is essentially um, violent, organized criminal violence fueled by right wing extremism with a strong taste of racism. But the priority has got to be stopping the violence.
And do you think the government is on the right path when it comes to stopping the violence?
I'm pleased with the steps that Keir Starmer has taken. I'm pleased that he's getting courts to sit 24 hours through the night. I'm pleased that he's identifying and naming as quickly as possible through due legal process those who've been involved in this violence and making them feel the full force of the law. I'm pleased that he is setting up an emergency police, standing army of police, because we cannot have a situation where the police are outnumbered by the rioters. The government and communities have first to shut this violence down, and then we have a lot of thinking and talking to do.
Right. And now, Roger, let me ask you, how do the far right's claims about protecting Britain from immigrants hold up against the reality that the Southport attacker was a native-born Christian, yet misinformation was used to incite violence against Muslim communities across the country? And what do you think, what does this tell us about the credibility and motives of these far-right influencers, especially when independent fact-checkers like Full Fact have debunked these false narratives?
Yes, thank you for the question. And I think on the point about whether these extremists are British, I mean, they may have British passports, most of them, but there's nothing British about their values. In fact, the people they are attacking are far more British than they are. They are people who believe in the real rule of law, democracy, making their contribution to society. And I would like your viewers to understand that there is nothing British about the violent, extremist, criminal racists who are attacking people in communities in the UK, whether those are communities, Muslim communities, or any other community. And we must stand together and stand against that. It is totally un-British, it is illegal, it is criminal, and it has to be shut down. As far as the question about social media concerned, yeah, I think that has been inflammatory. We have inflammatory politicians, as you pointed out earlier on, and they need to be held to account. And we have a social media that is inflammatory and that encourages people. We need a different kind of conversation and debate. And allow me just to make the point that what we're seeing today has been a long time coming, and it will take a long time to go away. And we've had years, 2 decades of using the immigration issue for political purposes, for political rhetoric, whipping up hatred, pouring oil on the fire. Social media, of course, is an element of that. But in the end, this has been a long time coming, and we need now to be calm, to be strong, to be united, and to have a different kind of public conversation, which is much more inclusive, and put the extremists where they belong, on the extremes, and some of them, I'm afraid, belong in prison.
Very well said. Roger, now before I let you go, I was thinking about this before coming to these studios. To what extent do you think the rhetoric that some of the far-right politicians in the United Kingdom have has to do with the fact that most of these people did not reflect on the UK's colonial history, and that is perhaps playing a role in shaping their views about how they look at society.
I think it's a very well made point. I think they should be reflect on Britain's colonial history. We all should reflect more on Britain's colonial history. But my experience with some of these individuals when I was in politics and subsequently is they are not interested in immigrants and immigration. They are interested in power, and they are interested in using the immigration issue and attacking migrants and refugees who generally don't have a voice for their own political purposes. And so it's very important that migrants and refugees do have a voice and are able to speak up themselves, not just speak up themselves, but engage in the conversation that we're talking about. And my organization, New Europeans, works with immigrants and migrants. Some of my members of staff have not been able to go to work today because we've considered it be too dangerous for them to go to work. And we need to hear those voices, the voices of my staff working with migrant communities, and most important, the voices of migrant communities as well, to have this new kind of conversation that I'm talking about. But what's been going on is that right-wing politicians have been using the immigration issue to further their own political aims, and this is the consequence.
Fascinating insights, Mr. Roger Casale. Thanks very much for talking to us here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time.
Thank you for the invitation.